So, what is permaculture? Well, permaculture is actually a combination of two words, permanent agriculture, or permanent culture actually. So it was one of the first words to actually describe something that was sustainable, something that's going to continue on for our future generations. And I like to think of it more as permanent culture. How do you create sustainable cultures, sustainable living? And what I want to talk about is how do you apply permaculture to architecture? How do you incorporate permaculture principles into architecture? The way I see permaculture working in architecture is making it so that it works with nature, not against it. And that's the first principle, is looking and observing how nature works best in the area that you want to place your home or the building that we might be looking at. So a lot of it is about observation. Where are the resources? The sun coming into it, the slope of the site, the wind, the views. Analysing the site so you actually understand truly what those natural forces are that are affecting it. And then we also look at all the resources that we're going to bring into the site to create the house or the building. So it might also be, in terms of the resources, the rainfall, the temperature, the soil that's there. Is it going to be useful for housing? Is it good for growing? Is it wet? Is it dry? Does the wind have a big effect on this? Are there going to be areas of frost that we can use? As the existing trees that we can benefit from? So it's the application of the actual site, the observation of what's happening on the site that's going to affect the final outcome. And this is all looking at the resources that are coming into the site. One of the principles of permaculture is that in nature there is no waste. Everything is a resource. So it's only us that have come up with the idea that things are actually a waste or a byproduct. And so it's understanding how those resources can be used, even waste products. And one of the biggies is, what are the things that we could use in, say, creating a house that would be useful as a resource? So obviously every house needs windows, and so in our own home, when we created our home, we went around and actually found second-hand windows, recycling existing windows. We had a theme. Anything that had aluminium, a dark coloured aluminium frame, would be useful to us. So if it was dark brown or dark green, we considered it as being something we could use. And in that way, when we built our house, even before we started designing, we actually had a whole range of windows that we could incorporate. And these actually created some of the spaces, and actually the spaces benefited from these second-hand windows, and that made the whole house a whole lot cheaper. But other things that were generated near or around the site, so there was macrocarpa, it was a windbreak that was locally grown. We had it milled, gauged and brought up to the site, and that became all of our framing, all of our exterior cladding. We also recycled a matai floor. This became a beautiful floor once it was all sanded up. It was 100 years old and was recycled out of a house. So the other things is also like rainfall. Using the rain that actually hit the roof, we obviously wanted to collect it for a water supply for us, but before it actually got to the water tanks, we turned it into an architectural feature. It became a waterfall where the kids used to play in it and splash in it when it was raining. And it was actually one of the best, most delightful things to look at, because we could gauge how heavy the rain was by just seeing how big the waterfall was. And from there it went to a tank, and then the overflow from that tank then fed down a whole lot of little ponds that we actually had water chestnut growing in. So we used that resource at least about 3 times if we could. And that brings me on to the next principle. Trying to give each thing that we do in a house or a building and give it at least 3 uses. Now the example here that I use, that we created in our own home, was our fireplace, where we actually heated the house and our water supply. So our resource in winter was a Warmsler cooker that's had hobs on top and an oven next to it. And it also, so we could use it for cooking and baking. We also used it to heat up all our hot water supply, and these aren't amazing things, but it was the number of things that we could actually get out of that resource or the heat that we created. So what we did was, on the pipe that went up and fed the hot water cylinder, and we got the hot water from. The return pipe then went into a towel warmer in our bathroom, and it actually kept the whole bathroom warm in winter quite well as well. So we had lovely warm towels whenever we had the fire on. This return pipe then went down into a basement that was directly below the bathroom, and in there we had a radiator which used the last of that heat and that water to actually heat the whole basement up, and became a drying room in winter. It also kept our composting toilet warm. So when it finally went back into the fireplace, we'd used a fair bit of the heat, but we didn't stop there, because we also ducted out of that circuit water that was then piped around underneath the floor, and that became underfloor heating, and that was insulated underneath that, and all that heat could be distributed right around the whole house. So that worked well, as well as also radiators. But it didn't stop there. Wait, there's more. We also had the chimney that went up directly above the fireplace, went through one bedroom space, so we placed and designed the bedroom spaces so we get that residual heat, and then there was a loft space above that as well, and that was another bedroom, and so we actually got the heat that was coming off the chimney. So I think if we totaled all that up, we had about 6 uses for that one energy source, and the net result of that was the house was incredibly cheap to run. So we got the benefit, a passive benefit, that we really didn't have to do anything more than start the fire, and we got all these uses out of it. And that's one of the principles of permaculture that we like to try and apply, and one that I highly recommend. So part of coming back to the observation ideas when we're observing the site, one is to actually choose the house site that's going to give us the best sun, so that provides passive solar techniques that we can then apply. So part of that is also the orientation of where the house is, what it's getting the north sun, and controlling this amount of sun in summer so that you don't overheat the space, and maximising the amount of sun we get in from north warm sun during the day, even though the air temperature might be cold, so we can store that in the house and get passive solar benefits from it as well. So the orientation and those things is an integral part of permaculture design of any architectural space. And finally, the whole lot can be assessed. And we had our own home assessed by the Green Home Scheme that was created by Brands, and that's now morphed into the Green Star Scheme that you can apply. And that gives you a way of empirically measuring the benefits that these solutions create, to see how sustainable the design really is. And I believe actually creates a lot of value, because if you can sell a house that has an excellent rating, it actually puts value on a home. And that's something that we certainly benefited from. And by also doing all of these examples, we actually had a far lower running cost as a result as well. Our power bill was incredibly small. We hardly ever actually needed to have the power on to run our hot water, because we had solar panels heating the hot water, and in winter we had the wet back and all the other benefits that came with it. So the cost of living was vastly reduced, and we were getting a yield from the resources that everyone can actually get, which is simply from the sun. So I would highly recommend applying permaculture to any design, whether it be a home or any kind of a building, and the benefits of it mean that lower running costs and a more pleasant space to work in the future. So, and it's good for the earth, simple as that. That's permaculture in architecture.